This is Dream, and today we have a three-game slate for college football on Friday. This starts at 7 p.m. slate. We have three games here: Virginia against Syracuse, Nevada versus Air Force, and Boise State versus UTEP. The top scoring game on this slate is going to be the Syracuse UVA game. It has 53-point spread, and then a 10-point favorite for Syracuse. Air Force is a 24-point favorite against Nevada, and Boise is a 15-point favorite against UTEP. In this particular slate, we have a couple good options at each position. There's not a whole lot of great options, but we have some value here, so we'll be able to make up a lineup. But with that said, let's go ahead and get into the players themselves. We're going to start with the University of Virginia. So the top quarterback for them is going to be B. Armstrong. He is $6,600, and my estimates are around 30 attempts for 220 yards and a touchdown, and he might also run for about 10 times for 50 yards and a touchdown. He gets some added bonus here because of that running ability, but it should be a pretty close game, and he is kind of favored as the underdog, so it's a chance he's going to be throwing the ball a lot late in the game. So I really like him in this matchup. For running back, we have Mr. P. Jones for them. Where'd he go? Let me click the actual team here. So Paris Jones, rather, he's probably going to get somewhere around 50 yards with about 10 touches. And I don't know about a touchdown, so he's probably a secondary option on this particular slate. But if you need him for the flex option, then you could definitely do that. And then at wide receiver, we have Keaton Thompson, who I think he's one of the better wide receivers and pretty inexpensive on the slate at $5,800. He's going to get 4 to 6 receptions with 75 yards around that, I would suspect, based on his production so far this season. And he's definitely going to have to make plays if they're going to have a chance to win this game. But he is under the price point that we need, so that's really good as well. Then at the next team is Syracuse. There's one more receiver here for Virginia. Sorry, Davis Jr. Lavelle. He's going to have a good chance to get about 3 or 4 receptions for 50 yards. He doesn't always get as many receptions, but he seems to get a pretty good amount of yards when he does get one, and so that gives him some advantage here. For Syracuse, we have a lot of good options. Schrader, he's probably one of my favorite options on this particular slate. You're going to see that he's going to have a lot of ability to throw the ball, somewhere around 25 to 30 attempts, 220 yards, 2 or 3 touchdowns, I'd estimate, along with another 15 rushes on the ground with somewhere between 50 and 75 yards and a touchdown potential. I think he's a great play. I think he's the top play on the slate. Obviously, his price is pretty high at $7,800, but he's still not too ridiculous where you can afford to put him in there with some other players. Then at the running back, we have Tucker for Syracuse as well. Now, he's in a great spot, though. He's one of the most expensive players on the slate, and so it's going to be a little bit harder to work him in here. But he should get around 20 rushes with 75 yards and another couple of receptions with another 20 or 30 yards as well. I think he's in a good spot, but he might end up rerunning the ball more late if they have a lead in the game. And the outfield, messing around with sports. In the wide receiver slot, we have Gadsden. He's my favorite play for the team. He's going to look around 5 for 55 yards and a touchdown, hopefully, in this game. And then we could also look at Jackson, who's very inexpensive, who I look for to get 2 or 3 receptions, around 40 yards, and hopefully a touchdown. He's been pretty good so far this season. So overall, I think Syracuse is probably one of the best teams to get some players from. Not necessarily the best place for running back simply because of the price, but I think the whole team is, the guys I mentioned are all usable on this particular slate. Let's go ahead and look at Nevada. Now, Nevada has a couple situations that we have to look at when it comes to if you're thinking about using some players from this team. They have a timeshare at quarterback between Illingsworth and Cox. So it's going to be really hard to get a good estimate about which guy might be the lead guy in the game. They have a timeshare at running back in Tua and Lee. And so it's the same situation. Neither one of them are consistent. They have had, kind of average game, big game, tiny game. And then that pretty much the same thing for Lee. And so do you know which guy is going to do it each game? It's really hard to tell. And they're favored to lose this game by 24 points. I don't see any reason to use a running back in this game for Nevada, or a quarterback rather, since they don't have anything. And then they don't really, they're not expected to score maybe 10 or 14 points anyway. And so I really just don't see any benefit to even taking a chance on a Nevada wide receiver either. Now, another reason for that is because they're playing Air Force, who runs the ball every play almost. And if we look at their quarterback, he's thrown 25 total passes on the season and finished 11 in 3 games. And in the first 2 games, he had 5 and 6, which is probably similar to what this game is going to be like. He had to throw the ball some in the 3rd game because they were behind. But overall, they're going to just run the ball down the middle over and over and over and pound them for a couple hundred yards that way and some touchdowns. And they'll probably win 30 to 15 or something like that, or 14 or something like that. So I don't think that their quarterback is a bad option necessarily either for Air Force, simply because they just run the ball a lot. And he runs the ball about 10 or 15 times a game. But the only downside is that he doesn't usually get a ton of yards. And so that's a little bit risky from that perspective. But the guys that you do want to use for Air Force are Roberts, who is their lead back, who's going to get somewhere in the 20 touch range and around 100 yards, hopefully, if not more than that, and a touchdown or 2. And then the other guy is Eldridge. He's also going to get plenty of touches in this game, somewhere around 10 and probably around 85 or so, 90 yards, and maybe a little bit more, and maybe a touchdown in this game as well. There's absolutely no reason to look at wide receivers in this game, because one of them might get 1 catch for 50 yards. They sometimes do that, but that's about all you could hope for, and the risk is not worth the reward. Now, if you want to do that contrarian to try to like sneak a GPP or something, but you're going to have to make a bunch of different lineups in order to fit different guys in and hope you get the one that actually does it. But it's just super risky. For Boise State, now again, they're favored to win this game against UTEP by a pretty sizable margin as well. So they have some good options here. Their quarterback is Bachmeier, who should throw around 200 yards, 25 attempts, and 2 touchdowns, I'd guess, in this one, maybe 3. It depends on how quickly they get ahead. The next guy is, the running back is Holini. He's somewhere in the 100-yard range, maybe a little bit less, but he does have some catching potential too, where he can get 30 to 40 yards in this one. And so I think he's a really solid option at $6,600. You're not going to have any trouble on the slate saving money, and so you're going to be able to pay up for whichever guy you want. At wide receiver, we have Cobbs and Capels. They are both in pretty good spots here. I have Capels getting around 4 receptions for 40 yards and a touchdown, and basically the same for Cobbs. Both of these guys get about the same amount of attempts, and so it's just a matter of, getting the right ones. But I think both of them are reasonably safe in this matchup simply because Boise's going to be able to play well in this game. And Boise likes to throw the ball, so that's always an advantage. But I do think they're going to get ahead, and Holani will have some ability late in the game. At UTEP, we have Hardison, and I don't think he's a great option because he's only really a 175-yard thrower for this game. But overall, he does have some upside, from the fact that he could get a couple touchdowns in this one. But just because of his price point, too, being $5,300. But he's not somebody I really like that much. But if you wanted a wide receiver from UTEP, the only guy to really even consider is Tyron Smith. And I kind of look for him to get 6 or 7 touches for around 80 yards and a potential touchdown. I think he's a pretty solid option if you at a very minimum price, too, at $5,400. So if you want to utilize him, you could definitely do that. Overall, this slate actually is really good, I think. You're going to be able to mix and match the players you want to use. I definitely would highlight Air Force running backs and quarterbacks from the first game, and then maybe wide receivers on the final game. So with that said, thank you guys for liking, commenting, subscribing. Make sure to check out Discord. Make sure to leave any comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and have a nice day, guys.